StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, we have made weakness cool. I am lamenting this. I am challenging this. I'm going to push back against it to see if we can fix things. That's what we're going to do in today's episode. But before we get into that, let me remind you all that I send out a text message every single morning called the Daily Motivation Text. It is free of charge every morning, guaranteed to keep you focused, sharp, and on point. You want to receive that message, and I think you would. So I should stop even saying if. Since you want to receive that message, text me at my number, which is 305-384-6894. And every morning when I send out the Daily Motivation, because you are a member of my texting community, you're going to receive that message. And I do actually read and respond to text messages. So somebody had just texted me the other day, this past weekend, from the recording date here, and they asserted that that was not me sending and responding to those texts. That is me sending and responding to those texts. When you get those messages, yes, that is me. You write back to one of those messages, yes, I will see it. Now, I do respond to those messages as well, so text me at my number, 305-384-6894, and every day when that Daily Motivation text comes out, you will be receiving that message to help you start your day off right. Now, what do you do with the rest of the day? Because that's just the start of your day. Everybody knows the text message is relatively short, right? So what do you do with the rest of the day to make sure that you have the right mindset, what we call the bulletproof mindset around here? You have an actual game plan, a strategy for how you execute that day, that you have a system for executing consistently, and that you are held accountable on that execution. Well, we have a place for that too. That's called Work on Your Game University. So inside of Work on Your Game University, this is the place where you get to work with me directly. You get to get these frameworks and systems installed into yourself and into your business. Any outcome that you're looking to achieve that is related to what you hear on this show, we will teach you how to do it inside of Work on Your Game University. So that is your next step. If you're listening to this show, your next step is Work on Your Game University. So here's what you do. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. We will tell you exactly what your next steps are and how to take them. And with that said, getting into the subject, we have made weakness cool. This is me pushing back against the softness that we have created. We've cultivated this softness. It didn't just happen. The softness did not just ascend upon us. This is something that we have created intentionally, and some of us have allowed it to happen unconsciously, but there are people who are intentionally making things softer, making things weaker, and basically legislating the toughness out of our society. And I am going to push against this because the weakness that we have made cool is going to create very hard times for all of us out here if we don't catch this before it goes too far. It's already actually gone too far. That's why I'm talking about it here today, because it's already gone too far with the weakness. And again, I'm going to assess why it's happened, how it's happened, and what we can do about it. Let's get into it. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is we have made weakness cool. Success and failure are not black and white from the outside looking in. But they are black and white when you're looking at yourself, however. Now, what do I mean by that? Success and failure are not black and white when you're looking at somebody else's situation, but when you're looking at your own situation, success and failure are black and white. But here's the reason why. Success and failure are relative to your expectations. They're relative to your expectations. So you can't tell somebody else whether their situation was a success or a failure unless you are aware of their expectations. If you don't know what someone's expectations are, what their goals are, or the outcome that they're trying to achieve, then you can't tell them whether what they're doing is working or not, because you need a separate data point. So if I see somebody in the gym and I'm seeing them come to the gym all the time for the last 6 months, and they don't seem to have lost any weight or gotten into any better shape, and I was to come up to them and say, look, I've been seeing you coming to the gym, and clearly what you're doing is not working. Can I help you out? I can't say that yet. I can't state that what they're doing is not working because I don't know what working means to them. Maybe they just want to say that they went to the gym every day. Maybe that's their goal. I just want to say I went to the gym, sir. I don't need to lose weight. I don't want to get a six-pack. I don't want to get in better shape. I just want to say that I went to the gym every day because my job gives me a reimbursement of $300 a month if I go to the gym 3 times a week, and maybe that's all they want. And it's not my job to judge whether they should want something other than what they want. But on the other hand, if I say to them, hey, what's your goal here coming to the gym? Because I see you coming here all the time, and they say, well, my goal is to lose 30 pounds, but I've been doing these workouts and I haven't really lost any weight. Now I can say, okay, then what you're doing is not working. Let me help you out, because now I have the data point to say I know what their expectation is. If you don't know another person's expectations, you cannot tell them whether what they're doing is working or not. And this is a mistake that a lot of people make when they start offering unsolicited advice, because you are assuming that you know what someone wants to achieve when you don't know. When you need to be asking questions rather than making statements. And there's a time to make statements, there's a time to ask questions, but you have to understand when is when and when is not. In other words, not in other words, but anyway, back to my point here, bigger point. Failure and success are relative to expectations. So the question is, what are your expectations? What do you expect of yourself? What did you expect to achieve compared to what you have actually achieved? To this point in your life, to this point in the year, to this point in your business, to this point in your career. Have you hit the mark or have you not hit the mark? See, when you know what your expectations are, then you can clearly say, yes, I've hit the mark, no, I have not hit the mark. And you can clearly say, I'm succeeding right now, I'm failing right now, I'm there or I'm not there. And are you willing to be honest and objective about where you are, specifically when it comes to yourself? Forget about other people. Are you willing to be honest and objective about where you are, specifically when it comes to what you are doing, and if you are there or if you're not there? Are you even on track to be there or not? Many people are unwilling to do this because, as Scottish novelist J.M. Barrie once said, our humblest hour is when we look at what we could have been compared to what we actually are. That's when we face the most humility in life, is when we look at what we could have been, and then we look at where we're actually at, and we're like, damn, that it's sometimes a cold dose of reality to realize that we're not where we thought we was going to be. It's an uncomfortable conversation to have with yourself, and because people don't want to have this uncomfortable conversation with themselves, they just completely avoid it. They avoid the conversation so they don't have to face up to the fact that, you know what, I'm not doing what I said I was going to do. I'm not living up to my own expectations. I'm not doing what I told myself I was going to do. I'm not being the person I said I was going to be. And instead of owning that and taking that proverbial smack in the face from yourself, people just avoid it, or they walk around it and try to figure out a way to make it sound like they're doing okay when they're actually not. And that's the point here today. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is that we have made weakness cool. Number 2. How we have specifically made weakness a cool thing, we made that weakness is the new black, is that when people look objectively at themselves and see that relative to your expectations, you have underperformed. What happens is people have created this softening language that makes your underperformance and your failure to meet your expectations sound like it's okay. And I'm gonna do a whole episode just on this concept of the softening language, because you can probably tell I'm a big words guy, I'm a big language guy. How we communicate with others, how we communicate with the outside world, and specifically how we communicate with ourselves matters a lot, and it plays a big role in where we end up in life. So I'm big on language. So when people use this softening language to make your mediocrity seem like it's okay, or to make your failure seem like success, or to make things seem not as urgent as they are in order for us to feel better about our situations, this is not okay. Because what it does is you're normalizing mediocrity. You don't want to do that. You don't want to normalize mediocrity. And when you codify and normalize mediocrity, this is how so many people end up mired in mediocrity for the entirety of their lives. Not because you don't have skills, not because you are incapable of achieving a higher level of performance. It's simply because you are incapable of, or you are unwilling to, recognize that you're not achieving at the level that you know you could be at. But you don't want to own that, because again, it makes people uncomfortable to have to own that. And many people, and some of you who are listening to this, you're guilty of this, would rather rationalize the situation so you could feel fine about it, rather than deal with the discomfort of, you know what, I gotta move, I gotta do something different, I gotta change what I'm doing, I gotta change my habits, I gotta make some wholesale changes to the process here, because that's actually gonna help me get out of this discomfort. Instead, what most people rather do is just find a way to feel okay with the discomfort so it doesn't feel uncomfortable anymore. So what you're actually doing is shrinking your comfort zone rather than expanding it. Growth happens when you expand your comfort zone, and the only way you can expand your comfort zone is to step into an uncomfortable place and stay there. But see, if you're doing things that are not working, but you're unwilling to tell yourself this is not working and we need to change, then you're not stepping into an uncomfortable place. What you're doing is making it seem comfortable to be in a place that is not working, so your comfort zone actually gets smaller. You want your comfort zone to get bigger. You have to tell yourself, this is uncomfortable, this is not working, this must change, I can't keep going like this, and I have to do something different right now. And that's going to be uncomfortable because you're doing something you don't normally do. What you normally do is rationalize it. Excuse me. So what I'm asking you to do is to step outside of what you normally do. Stepping outside of what you normally do is a step outside of the comfort zone. What you normally do, quote unquote, what you normally do is called the comfort zone. To do something outside of that is where you grow. Everybody following what I'm saying here? And because you are unwilling to have a real conversation with yourself or allow anyone else to have a real conversation with you about the things that are clearly not working, what happens is you stay in that zone. You stay in that zone of where you're comfortable, even though where you're comfortable is not helping you get anywhere. And this is how you live the rest of your life like this. If you've ever heard anyone say the following, they said, it goes something like this, I'm paraphrasing it, is that people become a certain type of individual by about age 20 to 25. You've heard me say this as well. And they live the same life for the next 65 years and they die. This is what happens to people. It's because we have made weakness cool. How we make weakness cool is, again, by being unwilling to be tough on ourselves. We instead be weak on ourselves, and then life just beats us up. And we accept life beating us up because we haven't taken it from anywhere else. See, the saying is, and it's a different saying, when you're hard on yourself, life is easy on you. And when you're easy on yourself, life is hard on you. So the question is, are you making it hard on yourself intentionally so that life can be easy? Or are you being easy on yourself so that life can be hard on you? Understand, folks, you're going to have to go through some hard stuff no matter what you do. I told you in episode 1663 that every situation has a shit sandwich. Right? There is no perfect situation in life. There are no perfect scenarios. There are no perfect outcomes, which means you're going to have to deal with some challenging shit no matter what. Would you rather control when you deal with the challenging shit, meaning you make yourself get uncomfortable, or do you want the challenging shit to just be thrown at you from all different angles at inconvenient times? That's life being hard on you. Which one do you want? Understand, you got to eat one of those shit sandwiches. Which one do you want to eat? Pick one, because you're going to eat one or the other. If you don't pick one, it will be picked for you. I would prefer that you choose your own rather than have someone force it upon you. And what I'm about to say is not a diss of females, but it is a truth. This is the feminization of society. This is a representation of the feminization of society. I talked about toxic femininity in episode 2457, if you haven't heard it. And I did a 6-part series on the feminization of sports, starting back in episode 2200. And also in episode 2039, I told you the worst traits of feminized men. You see, having these real conversations, these things that I'm suggesting that you have with yourself, about being honest with yourself about where you're at and what you're not doing, all right, compared to where you could be, all right, that's a masculine thing. Having a hard conversation with yourself and telling yourself a harsh truth that might make you feel like shit for a few minutes or a few hours or a few days, that's a masculine trait. All right, that's something that people with high levels of testosterone are more naturally fit to do. Is the opposite of what someone with more estrogen, that's feminine energy, is willing to do or naturally fit to do. Let's say that. Doesn't mean that a woman can't do it. And this hard conversation, these harsh conversations, this real talk conversation, letting yourself or someone else know the truth about where they're at, and it's a slap in the face to them, this is the responsibility of the men of society. This is why I did that whole episode where I talked about, let me find that episode, where I talked about toxic femininity, episode 2457. There's also the episode where, what episode was that? Episode number 2213, I told men you need to be more direct. Episode 2171, I said men, step up and do your job. All of these are related to men stepping into your masculine energy and actually doing what masculine energy is supposed to do. What many men have done these days is bend to the will and the energies of women. And therefore, what we get is more men thinking and acting as if they are females. This is what I mean when I say toxic femininity. See, when I say toxic femininity, I'm not really talking about women. I'm talking about what I talked about in episode 2039, the worst traits of feminized men. When I say toxic femininity, I'm not talking about females. I'm talking about men with feminine energy. I don't mind a woman getting into her feminine energy. That's what she's supposed to do. I don't mind a man being in his masculine energy. That's what he's supposed to do. is when it gets mixed up. That's when we get problems. So we're out of order. We're out of the natural order. So you got these men bending to the energies of women, more men thinking and acting as if they're females, because females naturally have a softer energy. They are naturally more emotional and thus do not have the same tendencies to look at things in an objective and black and white and harsh way the way that men do. Now, this is just naturally how men and women are. So it's not a new thing that a female will not be open to these kind of conversations that I'm laying out here about being honest about where you're at and giving yourself a slap in the face with the truth. But it is new that men are starting to shun these conversations. It's not new that women aren't prone to having these kind of talks. All right, so women, listen to this. All right, this is not something that women normally do. If women are talking to other women, that usually doesn't happen that way. Women communicate a different way. The way men communicate, we're black and white, we're objective, we're direct, we get to the point. And what a female will call harsh, this is what we call normal. Everybody get it? Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how we have made weakness cool. Here's the solution to all this. What do? Toughen up. The most important thing we got to do is toughen up. I have a course inside of Work on Your Game University that is literally this title. It's called Toughen Up. Toughening up means you being honest with yourself about where you're at and comparing it to where you want to be, and then holding yourself to account for making necessary adjustments for closing that gap. Closing your accountability gaps. I talked about this in episode number 765. Holding yourself accountable for where you're at, where you suggested that you would be by now, compared to where you actually are, and holding yourself accountable for fixing it. Because there's a distance between where you could be and where you want to be. And you know what all that means? It means that there's a level of discomfort when you recognize that there is a gap and that it will require some changes to be made both by you internally and externally in order for that gap to get closed. Internal changes are the way you change your thinking and your mindset. External changes are the fact that you change your actions, and then you can measure that in outcomes. It's about you ceasing to rationalize the fact that there's a gap. Stop using softening language that makes a not okay situation seem okay, because that's the exact thing that keeps you in the exact same spot and stops you from moving yourself forward to close the gap. So do you want the gap to actually close? Do you want to achieve at the level that you're capable of achieving at? If so, stop telling yourself that it's okay that you're not there yet. If you stop telling yourself it's okay that you're not there yet, you stop using the softening language, then that will it's going to do one of two things. It's either going to beat you down into a pulp and you'll just curl up in a ball and let life beat you up for the rest of your life, or B, you'll go the opposite direction and fight back. That's what's going to happen. Those are the only options you'll have left. But you got to put yourself in a position where those are the only options. Right now, you got too many options. One of them being, let me use softening language and make it seem not so bad. That's the exact thing that keeps you in the same spot. How many of you listening to this right now want to be in the same spot 6 months from now that you're in today? Almost all of you's answer is no, you don't. You want to change. You want to do something different. Well, in order to do something different, you got to move yourself to action. Move yourself to action. Put yourself in a position where you have no choice but to take action. Not where it's an option, but when you don't have a choice. So stop telling yourself that it's okay that you're not there yet. The reason that it's not okay is because eventually you're going to run out of time and you're going to die without closing that gap. And if you die without closing the gap, you don't win, your family doesn't win, your friends don't win, your kids don't win, society does not win. Nobody wins. Nobody gets anything from that if you underperform and you don't live up to your own expectations of yourself. That's why it's so important that you push yourself out of this comfort zone. The only way you can push yourself out of the comfort zone is stop being weak on yourself. When you're weak on yourself, life is going to be very, very, very hard on you. And whether or not it puts you out of the comfort zone or not doesn't really matter. It'll beat you up and put you even into a smaller zone of comfort. That said, let me recap today's class, which is how we have made weakness cool. Point number 1, success and failure are not black and white when you're on the outside looking in at someone else's situation, but they are black and white looking at yourselves in your own situation, because you know exactly what your expectations were, and success and failure are relative to the expectations that were set up front. Number 2, how we made weakness cool is that when people objectively look at themselves and see that you are underperforming relative to your expectations, what's happening these days is it's become cool to soften the conversation with yourself and make it seem like everything is okay when it's clear that everything is not okay. And what happens is we normalize mediocrity, and this is why so many people are mediocre, because we normalize it to make it seem like a normal thing when it should never be a normal thing. This is a feminine energy to normalize mediocrity and to soften and emotionalize the situation rather than look at it harshly and coldly and directly and objectively as what it is, which is a more masculine way of looking at things. And again, that is not to say that men cannot look at things in a feminized way naturally and women can't look at things in a masculine way naturally, but it's more along the lines of the natural order for women to have more feminine energy and men to have more masculine energy. I don't think anybody can question that. So the challenge that we have in society here today is that we've allowed it to become too feminized to where you got a bunch of men carrying themselves, thinking, talking, and acting as if they are women. Feminine. I don't mean cross-dressers, I don't mean transgender, I mean actual men who are still call themselves heterosexual, they still like girls, but they are carrying themselves and thinking and talking to themselves as if females, because they're softening everything, and I'm gonna do a whole episode just on that concept in a moment. Number 3, solution to all this is we gotta toughen up. It means being honest with yourself about where you're at, comparing it to where you want to be, holding yourself accountable for closing the gap between where you are and where you want to be, especially if the gap is you're looking up at where you want to be, not down at where you want to be, meaning you haven't so far surpassed your goals, but you are behind on your goals. It means there's a level of discomfort that comes with recognizing that there is a gap, and it's going to require some changes to be made both by you internally and externally for that gap to be closed. That's the mindset, and those are the actions, the strategies. So stop telling yourself that it's okay when it's not okay. That's the first step. Be honest with yourself. No, this is not okay. This is not working. I need to actually do something, because that kind of conversation leads to action. The other conversation, it's okay, it's all right, it's not that bad, that leads to nothingness, because you can feel good just staying in the same space. And nobody wins when you do that. Your family doesn't win, your kids doesn't win, the government don't win, you don't win, nobody wins. So this is a failing strategy all around, if you even want to call it a strategy. With that said, text me so you can get the daily motivation every single day for free, every morning straight to your phone, and you can actually text me and let me know what you liked about this episode as well. My number is 305-384-6894. And workonyourgameuniversity.com, that's the place to go. You're ready to get to work with me, you're ready to get pushed out of your comfort zone, you're ready to step outside of your comfort zone and actually achieve outcomes that you never even thought you could achieve, because you're now outside of that zone, outside of that box you've been living in your whole life. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com and let's talk about how we take you there ASAP. Work on your game. Dre all day.